Hi everyone, here's a look at Oulton Park in the Pro Mazda. This is Season 2 2020. I think this is my first time racing here in this car. I may have run some laps, but it's fairly unfamiliar. It's a great track though, kind of like Brands Hatch. Grass on the outside of every corner to catch you. You want to get a clean exit outside the final turn, lead you up the start-finish straight. Now coming into turn 1, you're lifting well after that board on the left there. Kind of that's what I use. Typically I've been braking into turn 1, but I notice on this particular lap I lift. The more speed you take off, the safer you can take it, of course. There's an off track on the outside of the corner to catch you if you let it drift too wide. And you want to bring it in to a very late apex, so apexing around here. And not take much grass. Now it's a risk versus reward factor. The more you can get the front wheel up here, the more you're opening the corner and therefore can carry more apex speed. But if you get the grass up here and bounce the car, you're immediately off the track. There's no recovering really from a bounce. You could even spin. So I've used about as much as you can possibly get away with on that line going through there. And then again on the outskirts of the track. Now amazingly this was not an off track, as this was considered my quickest lap of the session without off tracks. It wasn't my quickest out lap, but that would be running it very risky. Realistically you can probably take the front left here and just carry a couple of kilometers per hour less and take less risk. So I've used all the track there and avoided the off track. Now what I like to do coming down here is to throw it in 5th. Now you can go down to 4th, but you're carrying less apex speed in 4th, and it also jars the car to go down a gear. This is a momentum track, so whenever possible leave it in a higher gear and carry the speed. So we're coming down here, braking to get it largely just on the nose and just throwing the front end in with as much as you can in 5th gear. Now I'm not off the throttle at any point through this corner. I contradict myself. I lift the throttle when I brake and then I'm immediately back on it the second the brakes are off. It's just varying degrees of throttle through here, trying to control the understeer, and you get hard on it early and exit it out. Now unlike Brands Hatch where you can use all these kind of browny areas of the grass, you can't here. There's off tracks on this track, so it would allow you to carry more apex speed, but you actually can't use it without getting a 1x. Now really pushing the front speed, you carry a lot of apex speed to that corner. And it actually took me quite a bit to build up to just how much speed you can carry. It's very easy just to brake a little bit too much and carrying what feels comfortable, particularly in the early corner, but you've got to really push the front end into it and kind of let it understeer at the mid and then push out to get the most out of it. You can easily leave a 10th or 2 on the table here, just being slightly conservative. The car feels like it's still on the limit, but if you just let it roll in a little bit more without really pushing it in the throttle, it's really easy to lose a lot of potential apex speed. Let it run off out there. Hit this next corner's flat, just hold it left, don't even consider lifting. Now you're going down the 2nd through here, you want to brake in a straight line, kind of mostly, then just at the end of the braking point start to turn in and grab the actual inside apex. So in a straight line, I'm doing most of the braking. Trailed it in a little bit. Now what I've done on this particular lap is I've gone down 3 on entry. So there is a little bit of overlap between the brakes and the steering, but not a lot. It's primarily the braking should be done before the corner. I've got it down into 3rd and then I'm grabbing 2nd at the apex. I kind of stopped doing this in some of the later laps because the second this car grabs that extra downshift, it tends to bounce it a bit and make it understeer. You don't get that in all of the newer open wheelers where people can really grab late gears, but this Pro Mazda, you absolutely do get it. It's one of the tricks, I guess, to driving this car. So get the downshifts done out of the way, largely while the car's on the brakes. Bring it into an early apex, then hard power out. you typically, if you're doing it right, you probably should be getting a bit of exit oversteer. I didn't quite grab the apex there, which it would have been ideal possibly to go down a little bit lower, but I just couldn't bring the car down. But that was fine how when I carried a lot of good momentum through the corner. Now you're getting up to 5th. Now I'm going down 2 gears on entry here, and I'm trying to straight line these as much as possible. So get the front left on the front right curb, then bring it to the second apex as tightly as you can for a clean drive out. I'm not the type of person that likes to really bounce the cars over the curbs. I know some drivers can really control it. Julian's excellent at getting the car in the air and keeping it smooth and controlled and in motion. I tend to just like to give the car more smoother inputs and not wrestle it through this apex, so I'm just trying to get as little air as I can. So down into 3rd here. Not taking a lot of curb there, just keeping the car flat, then hard back into this next apex. And really straight lining it, which will give you a good exit up there. It's really just about building up to there. I've been making a lot of minor setup adjustments around this track because I find you can have a loose setup and you really nail that lap every now and again, but you want something you can consistently run through here and feel like the car's in control as opposed to it driving you and you're kind of trying to hang on. So this will look rather smooth, not a significant amount of bumping, just a clean exit. Now I'm typically leaving it 5th on here. It will bang on the rev limiter for a bit, but it does not affect it. The downshifting it from 6th in the 5th on entry will just cause understeer, and you don't want that. Now as you get closer here, you're really wanting to bring the front left into an early apex, so that should be your target. If you take a bit of a later apex, the car will often wiggle over the crest a little bit. Also, you're putting more angle into it, and as it wiggles, it loses momentum, even if you just have to micro correct it. You don't have to go off the throttle, and that momentum will carry up over the next corner. If you get any sort of oversteer, even a tiny bit here, then you're probably giving away a 10th or 2. So you want to smoothly straight in. It should be ideally hitting that line here with the front left, right wheel. I was a little bit wide of it there, but more importantly, I didn't induce oversteer. In some of the looser setups I've been running, I kind of haven't even really been hitting the apexes. I've just been carrying the momentum around the outside a bit more, maybe a meter wide of them, and that's also been working quite well. So turn in smoothly to an early apex in 5th. The car was trying to move the rear a little bit through there. I didn't let it. It was fine. In the 6th, because you're just dragging a bit too much in 5th. These are all the default gearings, by the way, and I've got 27 front wing on it, which is about the downforce I found to be fastest. I was initially trying to run max downforce because it feels like it should be with this many corners, but you're just losing too much on the bits between the corners. So again, here a double apex, and you need to really get into the first apex and then hold the inside line. If you're wide here, you can struggle to bring it back, and there's always an off track on the outside. So get into that first apex and the second apex. Didn't quite grab it, but it was enough because you're really just trying to keep it on the line for the exit. Ideally, if the corner wasn't so narrow, I probably would have liked to take a much later apex as this car turns in well and you can carry the speed better in a later apex, but just because of the narrowness of the corners, I prefer to take a more inside line through them. Now, this final corner is possibly the trickiest one on the track, simply because you've been used to carrying a lot of momentum through the previous corners, whereas this is actually quite a slow corner. It's deceptive. It looks like it's fast, but the angle of the corner means you've got to really sort of slow the car on entry and then accelerate hard out. So slow in, fast out. You want to in the 6th, then down in the 2nd. I'm sort of using that as a braking marker and breaking out of it, and you really got to bring the front end into the apex. If you don't get it into the apex and you're wide of it, then it just takes forever, and the car will usually start to oversteer because you've got to put more angle than you need into the car. So going here, down 4, bringing it in. Later apex is fine, but I have got the apex and then fast out, just putting the power down nicely. It likes to oversteer there because it's really unsettled on entry, and then the corner kind of falls away. I'll go back to give you proper. It feels like you're going really slow on entry. Like we're getting up here near 130 miles per hour and we're just slamming down the second. Entry about 80. Then accelerate out. Lap was a 22.8. I feel there's probably a little bit more in it, but it was still a sensible lap. And it hit all the major markers. There was nothing particularly wrong with it. And here's the lap in full speed.